You just want to hold his hand again, I bet. You feel like an orphan now?
We're fine.
Are you?
How did you know our daddy?
Do you remember our late Papa at all? The sweetest man there was, but Mama had him thrown in jail. She sold all of this to your family, cheap. All of this was gone. Can you imagine losing everything?
What's going on?
I asked Hans if he wanted our farm.
This is our place, and will be as long as I'm alive.
Maybe we should go start making our lunch.
Oh, now that's just stupid. I'm making lunch.
What are you doing?
It's all nothing. I thought it was mine, but it's nothing. So burn it.
This is our place, right here, right now, on his farm, where he spent his life. This is where we should be for eternity.
Do you think I'm cold?
I don't think you're cold.
Or maybe just not warm?
You're a good person.
Thanks so much for being here. Good to see you again.
Thank you. I feel like Glenn Close in The Natural right now. I'm like so wonderfully backlit by angels.
Because of that right there.
Yeah.
I love this film. I love your work, Angus. I think you're one of the most empathetic writers that we sort of have working right now. I've always loved your work, and it's wonderful to see Amy in a piece that you've written. Amy, were you aware of Angus before this film, and what drew you to this project?
Oh yeah, Junebug, of course. I mean and then I also right before I happened to see Goodbye to All That, his other film. So I just think he's such an incredible voice in film. As you were saying back there, like you write good people well without making fun of them. They're like good, solid, and funny people.
And you allow good people to do sort of bad things due to circumstance, you know, not horrible things, but things that they will regret the morning after or a year later, you know.
Yeah, you know, I don't think in terms of good or bad. You know, we had someone mention the other day, how come, you know, Amy's character is so strong and the men characters in this film are sort of wounded? And I said, well, I think they're all wounded. I think we all have both good and bad. And I think it comes from what I'm interested in, but also I was an actor, and you know, to be an actor, you have to sort of have empathy or understanding of a human person, so you can't play a bad person. I mean, you can play the fun of doing bad things, but you have to have some kind of, you know, humanity about them that's interesting to me.
How long ago was it that you were approached with to work with Angus and you got the script?
I guess was it about a year? I keep saying that, but is that right? Yeah, about a year before we started production. So a script was passed along by an agent at my agency who had worked with Angus on his last film and just kind of helped put it together and put us together.
How would you describe your character and sort of what she's going through here?
Oh my gosh, she's losing everything. She lost her father that she loves. She's losing her home that she loves. She's losing her job, which was primarily taking care of her father and the land. And this is all the world she has known. And not because, you know, we always talk about this. It's not like she hasn't found love because something terrible has happened to her in her life. It's just she's just too busy. She's just getting up in the morning with the sun and working the land and taking care of her father. Like that kind of passed her by.
It's in many ways a film about kind of letting go and having to start over. And most films and stories we see about that are about the moments when people have already started over and they're dealing with something. Whereas this is a movie about a moment where someone knows they're going to be approaching that and how they sort of get to that point. Where did you start when you started writing the film, Angus?
It actually initiated because I saw a photograph in the New York Times of 3 older brothers walking across a field in Poland. And it was just the photograph. The real story, I think, was they had been displaced as children and had not come back for a number of years since the Second World War, I think. But it was just these 3 older men who happened to be brothers and land, big, huge field. And something about that was just very evocative. and interesting. And the idea of older siblings became interesting. So those characters sort of, the idea from that, and then the brother and sister who are another older pair of siblings.
And the land is so much a part of this film. I mean, there are some interior scenes in the house, but for the most part, every shot is this, like, characters in this sweeping landscape on this land. It's in many ways almost kind of theatrical.
Yeah, and I was the producer too, so I didn't sleep at all because I kept thinking, oh my God, almost the entire movie takes place outside. What happens if it snows, or if it's...
And it did. We lost a day.
We couldn't get to the set one day.
Yeah, it was an ice storm. We only had 17 days to shoot anyway, so it just...
We had everything. We had mud. Everything that I was afraid was going to happen did happen, but we got through it.
Yeah.
There's a scene, I mean, I don't want to give anything away because people probably haven't seen the movie, but one of maybe my favorite scene of the film near the end is when a man with Alzheimer's really sort of loses himself and starts saying some horrific things, and it's unclear how much of that is leftover personality from before his Alzheimer's or just the Alzheimer's. And I think in a film like this, which doesn't necessarily plant that seed, it takes a lot of bravery to have a character suddenly doing something like that. Can you talk about writing that scene?
Yeah, he was inspired by actually someone I know who had severe brain trauma, and it was a woman, and she still is alive.
Did he have Alzheimer's in the film? I didn't make that up, did he?
Yeah. He had a stroke. He had had a stroke.
Okay, excuse me.
In the film, the character had, but this woman would say very inappropriate things. It's like the filter that was there that covers up our id no longer existed. So she would say very salacious things to you, and it would be startling and weird and kind of funny, at certain times too, because it was so uncomfortable. And that's actually what inspired that character's aphasia.
Well, and I mean, the domino effect that scene has on your character is really beautiful, because she's this person who is forced to consistently be strong and is honestly getting viewed in a negative light by all these men because of how strong she's trying to be. And then it kind of, ironically comes back to bite her in that single moment. Yeah,
I mean, I so admire her dignity in that scene. I mean, she really is. This guy, let alone that he's sick, he's also just been a royal pain in her ass, and he's also a threat to her, her home. But yet he keeps crossing the line, and she keeps grounding herself and giving him another chance, which is admirable. But there's also that moment, afterwards where she just leaves it a beat too long before she calls for help. Yeah. When he falls ill, so. There's something maybe wishful.
Ambiguous beat.
Yeah, like maybe she has a little bit of enjoyment.
Okay, I'll go help.
Yeah, go help him now. Yeah.
What I mean, outside of working with him, and what attracted you to this character? You've played such an amazing array of characters over the course of your career so far. But what was it specifically about her that felt different and like a new challenge for you?
Well, it's just like strong. I mean, I've played strong women before, but. Mostly it was the language in that Angus writes. It feels poetic in reading, yet it feels very familiar. Like these are just regular people, and this is the way they speak. So that drew me in just as I was flipping through reading it off the page. But and also, the attraction was being at the helm of a film, and kind of having that burden and that like wonderful responsibility to take this on. So I was happy to give it a go.
And what about casting Terry Kinney as your brother?
Yeah,
I mean, there's always, when you make a film, it's always kind of like a Rubik's Cube or something. You never know what pieces are going to actually come together. And we had another actor, and then he couldn't do it, and it was like, what's going to happen? And and I don't even remember who suggested Terry Kinney, but he's someone who it was kind of like...
Such a wonderful face. Like,
everything
just in terms of like decades of his work, he shows up and stuff,
exactly.
And I'm like, oh, yay!
He's sort of legendary. In fact, one of the reviews finally mentioned the legendary Terry Kinney because, he started Steppenwolf, and he's a Broadway director as well as an actor, and on Oz and Billions and all these different things. And so another actor that I knew knows him very well. And so I said, can you get our script to him or mention it? And so my friend Tim Kinney, who's another actor, did give it to Terry, who read it, and then he accepted, and it was like thrilling. But I have to say, I mean, Amy was the first actor that we'd cast, and she's sort of an acting magnet, so that you can say, well, Amy Ryan is in the movie, and they're like, yeah, I want to be in that. So that was great.
Absolutely. And Martin Scorsese executive produces it, which I love because I find that I mean, obviously I love Martin Scorsese and his movies, blah, blah, blah. It's cliche to say that you love Martin Scorsese at this point, but what I love about him is that he's always associated with epic movies, gangster movies, but he really just has an incredible taste, both in movies and music and in everything that he champions. And I'd imagine that one of the reasons that he stepped into this is because he's a champion of your work. He knows your work.
Yeah, which was more than thrilling. He actually had seen Goodbye to All That, my last film, and really liked it, and through his people told me how much he liked it. And so when I was putting this together, I thought, what have I got to lose? So I asked him if he would be executive producer, and he said, yes, he'd like to support my work. And the idea that he even knows my name is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, I was watching the other day some documentary, I don't even remember who it was about, and he turned up as a young man during the time when he was making, one of his classic films like Raging Bull, and I think, I know him, and he knows my name. And I did, though, have to finally ask his assistant, can I call him Marty now? And they said, yeah, you can call him Marty, because you don't know, it just seems so presumptuous. But he was incredibly generous. He's incredibly vigorous and energetic and warm and supportive. And as I said, it's kind of unbelievable that I even see his name on the poster. It's because he's so inspiring to me. Not only him as a filmmaker, but he is a huge student of film, and his documentaries are some of the things I love the most. And so
film and culture, and that he's a culture culture, mainly
rock,
film, but everything.
I mean, so to have someone that I admire so much say what you do has value is what you want. I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, it's very hard to sustain a career in independent film at my level because not many people see them, and they certainly don't make any money. But to have someone like that, like people have said to me, yeah, you didn't make any money and not many people saw it, but Martin Scorsese saw it and he liked it. So there really is something that...
A little boost of confidence there to keep it going.
Yeah, that lasts for about an hour, and then I go back down to the depths of what my...
Box office mojo, just going, come on. But that is true. That is a massive boost of confidence for a storyteller, especially one like this. You say that, even in the independent film world, it's hard, I'd imagine, to get films financed that are about human beings that are not all wrapped in some big package, like a biopic package or some other kind of sure, it's about human beings, but it's also a gangster movie, this is literally just about human beings dealing with loss and land and life, which I'd imagine when you go to pitch that, how does that go?
It doesn't. It doesn't go. I mean, I raised the money myself.
You say, I got Amy Ryan.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I didn't have her when I was ever trying to raise the money. Really, I did it all independent investors. I mean, there's no way anybody would pay for this. No way. It's a drama. Come see it. It's a drama about people who aren't 25 who don't live in Brooklyn. And it's an independent film. It's it's not a thriller. It's not this or that. So it's very frustrating and difficult. So you have to go around every other way. And there is no pitch. It really was me going and asking just individual people, would you be interested in doing this? And either they know my work or,
Martin Scorsese likes it.
Well, I couldn't use his name. That was part of the thing.
Then what is his name on there for?
Well, I could use it after he saw it. That was sort of the caveat. He had to he said, yes, I will put my name on it, but I want to see the finished product before I actually sign off, which I can understand if it was a big piece of
it's a pretty important
whatever.
Name.
Yeah. But he said, I'd rather you not use my name to raise money. And someone finally explained to me that if I'd gone out and said, Martin Scorsese is one of our executive producers, and people gave me money on the basis of that, and then he watched the film and didn't put his name on it, they'd go, wait a minute, I only gave you money because Martin Scorsese was involved. So it's all this way, every way you can try to think of to try to get something made. But now I want to try to get people to see it.
Yeah. People should see it. It's a really beautiful film with an incredible performance by Amy and by Terry. Amy, what was the most difficult scene for you to shoot in the film? The one that was the hardest for you to wrap your head around and sort of get into?
I don't want to put this on you, but Probably just the elements. I mean, it's freezing. It was really cold, but yeah, there is a scene with Max Gale that I really just didn't understand how to play, and and there wasn't much time again with our 17 days to like have a sit-down dramaturgical discussion about and rewrites, but I just kept saying, Angus, I don't know how to, I'm failing you here, and he finally like took the hit and said, it's me, I'll take responsibility, it's my writing, and he rewrote a little bit.
I went to her trailer afterwards and said, you know, it was not you, it was because the text didn't support you in this scene, it really didn't.
But ask what scene, if you don't mind. I don't want to spoil anything.
It's when he's sitting on the ground and talking about the who's been buried in this field, and she's just sort of feeding. It's really because it's not about her. It's really about him, and he's talking in a sort of a large, sort of metaphorical way, and yet it wasn't quite clear what is it that she's saying or what she's wanting.
Or why I'm letting him tell me this stuff. Like, why don't I just walk away? Like these brothers have already pushed their limits with me. Why am I giving him audience for this? So that was just hard. And yeah, there's nothing about the performance of Max. Like that was beautiful, but I was like, I'd walk away, wouldn't I?
The text.
But so I blame Angus.
Well, that's such a strange lesson too, because good actors like Amy are usually right in situations like that because they're just trying to go, why am I doing this? But you, as the writer and director, it's like, and especially, and also I think being a male writer-director have the problem of being like, and you have to sort of get over this weird ego thing and then be like, okay, wait a minute,
it's also
that person's
the same
right.
for actors. Like sometimes there are these ego moments you can have. You can make a choice that is like a beautiful ego moment. You go, this is what, but this doesn't support the story. So I've got to let go of this. Like, even if it's about like choosing the way you look and your costume, like you have to check the ego if you want to get to truth in story, I think.
Are you good at checking the ego?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
I mean, ego-driven way of saying it, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, awesome at not having an ego.
In terms of working with somebody like all of my actors, I'm like, God, if Amy Ryan can't do it, there's something wrong that I've done, and also because I was an actor myself, I'm always, I hope, you'll probably tell a different story. I'll leave the stage and then she can tell her side. But I'm always like, this is what I think the scene is about. If it doesn't correspond to what your work is like, change it or do something different, because I know how hard it is to be an actor and how vulnerable you are, especially in film, where you just have to throw yourself into the darkness of whatever the director's viewpoint is. And so I really want people to feel comfortable, because I needed that when I was an actor. I needed a comfortable area. I remember a quote early on with Sean Penn who said that he said that he builds a cage and then goes crazy in the cage, which I understood, where you can feel free to lose your control. And that's what you want as a director or a situation where someone you know and trust is going to catch you and then you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
So as the writer too, I knew my cage wasn't strong enough for her in that moment. So
did you end up rewriting the scene at all or getting the chance to shoot anything?
I knew that she'd gotten it. She was more worried about it than I, and I knew I'd gotten what she needed, and a lot of it was just her listening and not being clear as to what was going on in that scene or what the character was going to do. And so I think it still works. I mean, some people could watch
I mean, ultimately, that is similar. It's like, well, you don't know what to do because the character doesn't know what to do. Sometimes that is it, too. And then a little bit of editing, a little bit of trimming.
Do you find that acting for the theater or acting for film is, I forgot the turn of phrase they used, but like is more difficult? Which one is more difficult in terms of the intimacy of the performance?
No, I feel like if you have great writing, it takes you. So bad writing, there's nothing more painful than if you're on stage, you're on camera. It's hard, like squeezing your three-dimensional self into a two-dimensional character. Ultimately, you're going to walk away feeling bad about yourself. Like, why can't I do?
You're not talking about monster trucks right now. Right now, I'm kidding.
My mortgage payment.
Absolutely. I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Girls got to eat. Girls got to afford art.
100%. Anybody ask me to be a part of something called Monster, I'd be like, yes.
Which I hear it's actually very sweet.
Really?
The kids like it.
I
haven't seen
didn't see it.
I haven't seen it, and not because out of snobbery, just because I just haven't gotten around to it. So.
Well, because we have lives.
Yeah.
Let's get some questions from the audience.
Hi, my question's for Angus. What is your opinion on right now the lack of originality in Hollywood? It seems like everything, especially from a writing standpoint, is based on something that's come before or as a rehash? And a second part, do you think now, due to the success of, like, you know, the shows on Netflix, HBO, et cetera, that Hollywood's going to take a step back and start having more original content?
I don't know. I mean, certainly TV, so many people that I know who are in the independent world, they can't make it in the independent world. They can't support it, so they've gone into television. And you know, it's always economic. I mean, there are, and even the big things that I don't think are my kind of film, sometimes they're great. You know, I mean, like big action movies are not really my thing, but you know, Wonder Woman was really great because of her and because of the image of her character was just kind of great. So I'm always amazed when those zeitgeisty films are really good. And then it's frustrating, what's more difficult for me to take is that because people don't go to the movies except for those big movies anymore. I mean, they don't go out to see a film, which is why this is difficult to get out into the theaters, you know. You just watch it on your phone, or a lot of young people don't even watch films. They're not interested in films. So that's more frustrating to me.
Yeah. Next question.
Hi, thank you guys for being here. So I kind of want to get your input, both of your inputs on this, both from a writing standpoint and from a performance. What's one thing you wanted people to, you know, take away from the movie? Just, you know, something that you want to stick with them, you know, as they leave the theater.
Let's see. Well, to me, the movie really is about letting go and how hard it is to let go. And because the things that we love in our life, which are our family, our health, our youth, our jobs, our, you know, successes, our homes, our past, we eventually lose them and we have to let go, and it's so hard. I mean, it's almost, to me, it sounds very pretentious, but the movie has kind of got that Buddhist kind of underpinning, and that eventually, you know, old age, sickness, and death is going to be something we all have to deal with, and nobody wants to, and we have to, and when someone does that, it actually is kind of heroic. And to me, also a definition always with art, to me, is that I've read is, you know, it makes you feel less alone and happy to be alive. And so that, to me, when you see someone going through something that you can relate to, you feel, oh, someone else has felt that. And I hope that the film is not depressing. I don't think it is, although it's dramatic and could be sad, that it's somehow vivifying in some way because her character is able to do this, I think, heroic act eventually.
Yeah, I can't really top that, but other than to agree with it. But yeah, the one thing we're all guaranteed in this life is death and loss. Sometimes might not be that scary. You know, it can, as you say, almost be a beautiful thing because it's shedding. There's a new road ahead.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more right here.
Hi. Since you just had 17 days to shoot the film, how many takes did you get to do for each shot, or like did it depend on the scene? And did you wish you had some more time to shoot?
You know, I mean, I don't have, my experience has always been in film, and also I was in the theater too, is that everything is sort of like you always wish you had a week more, no matter what you have. You know, if you were in the Berliner Ensemble and had 3 months, you'd always want a week more. So it's, yeah, I wish we'd had a little bit more time. But in terms of the number of takes, we would have generally like 4, maybe. I remember there was a couple of scenes, like when everybody comes into the kitchen and it was a one shot. I had like 9 or 10, and the assistant, Scott Larkin, the assistant director, is like, "Come on, you got to move on." And I'm like, "No, I'm going to get it." But that would be the tops. Most of the times it's 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's certainly, I mean, again, with 17 days, but it never felt like under the gun in that way. Like, it felt like a very creative space, and I think because Angus was so prepared, you know, knew what he wanted to capture and left room for the unknown.
I never felt that way to you.
but you know, so it was, and again too, I think having one set can also be confining, but yet we know it now. We know where we can light it, where we can stand, and so it was.
I will say that our DP, our director of photography, is married to an editor, and he was always asking for more setups than I thought we could get, and he kept saying, "Your editor's gonna really like it when you get to the," and when we finally got to the thing, he was like, "I can't believe you did this many setups in 17 days," because I was always like, occasionally I would feel I'm not getting enough takes because I know we have 5 more setups for that scene. So that's the only time I really would feel that way, but it worked out.
How did you, I mean, 17 days and most of it is, it's for the most part outside. How did you deal with light?
Well, the light, I would worry. I never slept. The light I really would worry about, because you can't shoot, like, there's a scene near the end that should be like from about 4:30 in the afternoon till 5:30 in the winter, when it goes from twilight to evening. And we shot it over 2 days, the entire day. And I kept saying, it's never gonna look like that. You know, it's never, the shadows are gonna change and the sun's gonna be different. And there's a lot you can do in post, in color correcting. And we had luck. I mean, we had some good luck and some bad luck. I mean, we did have snow one day, which I was terrified of. What if it snows? We can't get to the set. Well, that happened. We had ice. We had mud. The trucks got stuck in the mud. We had one day that was like 70 degrees, and then nights where it was 27. So, you know, you kind of have to go with...
Keep going. And then we had that, I think it's the last shot in the film, right? We were really chasing light.
Oh, yeah.
And we had about 5 setups of Tracy in the field, and we'd get it, and everyone would run to some piece of equipment.
Including the lead actress would
move it out of the way.
Okay,
go now from this angle, do the scene.
We probably shouldn't say that.
You were moving track as well?
Maybe I was. Maybe I wasn't.
That's amazing.
I support unions, but maybe I was.
But it is a right to work.
Sorry, yeah.
It's a right to work state.
Maybe
But
it was
really,
just an
literally.
apple box.
And she would be right back in it, and
Or
I'd
like,
say, you know,
yeah,
she's...
saying like, hey, go, because it was, the sun was
Oh,
coming
man.
down, and that was our last day, too.
Yeah, I
think,
mean,
like,
she's
that
doing the
was
most
it.
difficult thing, and
But-
she's crying and everything, and then she's lifting up track, and I'll say, okay, are you ready to do it?
I'm
She'd
ready.
go, yeah.
Yeah.
She'd go right back into her. It's amazing.
Do you still sort of love experiences like that? I mean, having gone from
yeah.
like a big set to a set like this, the idea of still
Yeah.
a small company working together to sort
Yeah, I
of...
mean, this is the kind of film where you genuinely know everyone's name. Like, not just, hey, buddy, hey, guy, how's your day? You know, because there's so many, such a small village in these larger production films. But no, we were all there because we loved the film, and that was very apparent, too. So it just, like, you could feel the energy, just like, we'll get this done, we'll get it.
The whole cast and crew were such, you know, just good eggs, troopers. I mean, you know, there really wasn't a bad one in the bunch. And that was, again, making independent films is so difficult that I usually go, what's the point, why do it? But it was working with these actors and the crew who invested their value into it. And that made me go, oh yeah, that's why I want to do it. They think it's good enough to continue to do. And it really, that brought back the sort of joy of the creativity of making an independent film.
How often have you stopped yourself from making a film or fundraising for a film because you were just sort of like, why do this?
I haven't had a project where I actually stopped myself from doing it until now. I really cannot imagine making another one. This was so difficult and so stressful because I did everything. This one I was producer. I had a fellow producer, Kate Churchill, but you know, producer, director, and writer. And really, literally, I slept like 4 hours a night and had to take a Benadryl, a melatonin, and half an Ativan in order to get the monkey mind to stop just for the 4 hours. And then just to see it through, to try to get it into a theater, to try to get a distributor. You know, it's the independent film is in a very strange place now.
It's a remarkable amount of commitment.
Yeah, so can I mention where it's playing? It's playing at the Cinema Village.
Absolutely, 100%, please.
Yeah, it opens tomorrow at the Cinema Village on 22 East 12th Street. We'll play for 1 week only. Tonight, or it's tomorrow, but hopefully some of the actors and myself will be there for the Q&A at the first show. And I really hope people see it. And then actually, soon it will be out on platforms, so people can see it, catch it. Actually, October 6th, it'll be out on iTunes and Amazon and other platforms on demand too.
It's a really beautiful movie. I love it. I love both of your works so much. Thanks so much for coming in. Guys, Abundant, Acreage Available. It's playing at Cinema Village for a week. Go see it. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you.